A single briefcase, sitting quietly beneath a wooden table. Inside it, enough explosive to kill everyone in the room. The man who placed it there walked out, made an excuse, and waited for the explosion that would end Adolf Hitler's life forever. But one small, almost meaningless accident, moving that briefcase just a few feet, was about to save the most dangerous man in the world. This is the story of Operation Valkyrie. Before we continue, if you're enjoying these deep dives into World War II history, please follow our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It genuinely helps us keep bringing you these stories, and we'd love to have you as part of this journey. Now, let's step back into July 1944, into one of the most dangerous rooms in the entire war. By 1944, Germany was losing the war, and many of its own military officers already knew it. Adolf Hitler's decisions had become increasingly reckless, refusing to retreat even when defeat was obvious, sending hundreds of thousands of soldiers to their deaths on battlefields that could no longer be won. Inside Germany's own military command, a small group of officers had reached a terrifying conclusion. As long as Hitler remained alive, the war would continue until Germany was completely destroyed. The only way to save their country now, they believed, was to kill their own leader. This secret resistance had actually existed for years, quietly growing among certain aristocratic officers who despised what Hitler and the Nazi Party had done to their country. But by 1944, their planning finally reached its most serious and dangerous stage yet, an actual plan to assassinate Hitler himself. At the center of this plot stood a remarkable man named Claus von Stauffenberg, a highly decorated aristocratic army officer who had lost an eye, one hand, and two fingers on his remaining hand fighting in North Africa. Despite these severe injuries, Stauffenberg remained fiercely committed to stopping Hitler. Stauffenberg had once genuinely believed in Germany's cause, but after witnessing the horrific treatment of civilians and prisoners on the Eastern Front, along with mounting evidence of Nazi atrocities against Jewish people, his loyalty had transformed completely into determined, dangerous opposition. The resistance group developed an ingenious plan called Operation Valkyrie. Originally, Valkyrie had actually been a legitimate German military plan designed to maintain order within Germany in case of internal uprising or chaos. The conspirators secretly modified this existing plan for their own purposes. Their idea was brilliant in its simplicity. If Hitler were killed, they would activate Valkyrie, using it to seize control of key government buildings, communication centers, and military installations across Germany, claiming they were simply restoring order after a supposed uprising by rival Nazi factions. This clever disguise meant that ordinary German soldiers, following what they believed were legitimate military orders, would unknowingly help the conspirators seize power, without most of them ever realizing they were actually participating in a coup against their own leadership. But before any of this could happen, Hitler himself needed to actually die, and Stauffenberg, due to his position and access, was chosen to be the one to plant the bomb that would finally end Hitler's life, a task that required him to personally attend meetings directly alongside the man he intended to kill. On July 20th, 1944, Stauffenberg traveled to Hitler's remote military headquarters in East Prussia, a heavily fortified compound known as the Wolf's Lair, hidden deep within dense forest and surrounded by layers of security checkpoints, barbed wire, and armed guards. Inside his briefcase, Stauffenberg carried explosive material carefully hidden among his papers. His plan was straightforward, but required nerves of absolute steel. Place the briefcase as close as possible to Hitler during a military briefing, quietly leave the room and let the bomb do the rest. Due to his injuries, Stauffenberg struggled to set the timer using his remaining fingers and was interrupted partway through the process by an officer urging him to hurry to the meeting. He managed to arm only one of the two explosive charges he had originally intended to use. Carrying the armed briefcase, Stauffenberg entered the crowded briefing room where Hitler and roughly 20 other officers were gathered around a large wooden map table, discussing the deteriorating military situation on the Eastern Front. Stauffenberg carefully positioned his briefcase beneath the table, as close to Hitler as he could reasonably manage, then quietly excused himself, claiming he needed to make an urgent phone call, a believable excuse that allowed him to leave the room entirely undetected. Then, in what would become one of history's most consequential small accidents, another officer in the room, finding the heavy briefcase in his way, casually moved it to the opposite side of a thick, solid wooden table support, unknowingly placing a massive barrier between the bomb and Hitler himself. Stauffenberg, waiting anxiously outside the building, had no idea this crucial change had occurred. At approximately 12:42 in the afternoon, the bomb detonated with tremendous force, completely destroying the briefing room in a massive explosion. From a distance, witnessing the explosion and thick smoke rising from the building, Stauffenberg believed, with absolute certainty, that Hitler could not possibly have survived such devastating destruction. He immediately began making his way toward a waiting aircraft to fly back to Berlin. But inside the ruined briefing room, something almost unbelievable had happened. The thick wooden table support that the officer had unknowingly placed between the bomb and Hitler had absorbed much of the explosion's deadly force, shielding him from the blast's full impact. 4 people in that room died from their injuries, and several others were severely wounded. Hitler himself suffered burst eardrums, minor burns, and numerous small wooden splinter wounds, his clothing shredded almost entirely. Yet remarkably, he survived. Emerging from the wreckage shaken but very much alive, Hitler was quickly examined by doctors who confirmed his injuries were relatively minor. Within hours, he would personally meet with a visiting foreign dignitary, determined to demonstrate to the world that he remained firmly in control. Meanwhile, Stauffenberg, having successfully flown back to Berlin believing his mission had succeeded, arrived to find the conspiracy's early stages already beginning to unravel. Confused and contradictory reports about Hitler's fate had begun spreading among the conspirators, causing dangerous hesitation. Some conspirators, uncertain whether Hitler had truly died, hesitated to fully activate Operation Valkyrie, wasting precious hours that would ultimately prove absolutely critical. This fatal hesitation gave Loyalist forces crucial time to organize and respond to the unfolding crisis. By early evening, definitive confirmation finally arrived. Hitler had survived the assassination attempt and was very much alive. This devastating news spread rapidly, and the coordinated coup that conspirators had planned for years began collapsing almost immediately under the weight of confusion and fear. Loyalist forces, remaining fiercely committed to Hitler, quickly began arresting the conspirators throughout Berlin. Stauffenberg and several key co-conspirators were captured that very night at their headquarters, offering little meaningful resistance against overwhelming Loyalist military force. In the chaos and confusion of that same night, Stauffenberg and 3 of his closest fellow conspirators were swiftly executed by firing squad in the courtyard of the very building where they had planned their failed coup, given no formal trial whatsoever. This was only the beginning of Hitler's brutal, sweeping retaliation. Enraged by the assassination attempt, he ordered a massive, ruthless investigation into anyone even remotely connected to the conspiracy, determined to eliminate every possible remaining threat to his authority. Over the following months, the Gestapo conducted a massive, terrifying purge, arresting nearly 7,000 people suspected of any connection to the resistance movement, whether direct involvement or merely distant association through friendship or family ties. Approximately 200 of these arrested individuals were eventually executed, often through deliberately slow, agonizing methods designed specifically to inflict maximum suffering, as a brutal warning to anyone who might consider future resistance against Hitler's regime. Among those executed was Erwin Rommel, one of Germany's most celebrated and respected military commanders, who was implicated, though his exact level of involvement remains genuinely debated by historians even today, and forced to take his own life to avoid public disgrace to his family. The failed assassination attempt ultimately strengthened Hitler's paranoid grip over Germany's military and political structures even further, as he became increasingly suspicious and distrustful of his own generals and advisors during the war's final, desperate year. Historians continue debating whether the plot's success might have genuinely shortened the war, potentially saving millions of lives across Europe. Some argue Germany's military situation was already too far gone by mid-1944, while others believe a successful assassination could have opened paths toward earlier peace negotiations. Regardless of these ongoing historical debates, Operation Valkyrie remains one of the most significant acts of internal German resistance against Nazi rule during the entire war. Proof that even within Hitler's own military structure, genuine courage and moral conviction quietly existed. Today, Stauffenberg and his fellow conspirators are officially honored in Germany as genuine national heroes, commemorated annually, with memorials established at the very locations where their courageous, ultimately unsuccessful plot unfolded and tragically ended. Thanks so much for watching. If this incredible story of courage against impossible odds surprised you, please leave a comment below, follow our Facebook page, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more untold stories from World War II. Until next time, take care.